I'm Kyle Ellicott. Welcome back to another full week of VCTV. As we did last week and the week before that, we have yet another double feature every single day this week for you, our audience. So get ready, tons to talk about. And today, we're talking about a very exciting, potentially hungry. So if you haven't had breakfast, get ready. But nonetheless, we've got an exciting topic to talk about around food tech, and marketplaces. As we know, and as we've talked about previously here on VCTV around all different types of industries and technologies, that the food that we eat has changed. There's been a lot of technology introduced, some for the better, some still to be determined, which we're going to talk about with each of our guests today. Also, the way our food gets to us, or how we search out our food, how we go to purchase our food, or maybe we don't go to purchase anymore, it comes to us. Marketplaces, how we look to buy our food, where we get our food, and how it gets to and from us. That has all changed, but what is new? What is coming? And that's what we're going to be talking about today here on VCTV, food and marketplaces. So get yourself ready, grab a croissant, grab some coffee. It's going to be a fully packed episode. And without further ado, audience, welcome. We're very thankful to have you here today. For those that are tuning in, at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you like what you hear as well, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. I'll do my best with Elena to ask any questions that come through in real time. If not, we're all available 24/7 online, as you will find out a little later today, and be happy to continue the conversation. For those that are listening as investors, if you would like to be on a show like today, reach out. We'd love to hear from you and love to find the perfect stage for you, whether it be a subject like today, a technology or an industry or a region as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights on our show. And to entrepreneurs, this is not just a stage for investors. This is a stage for you. As we've had here on VCTV, entrepreneurs, you get a chance to come up here and pitch us as investors and pitch the entire live audience that's tuning in. That's a huge opportunity for you and your company. Please do reach out to Elena, to the LA Token team, and or myself, and we would love to find the right stage and episode for you. All right. And a big thank you and shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for always making sure VCTV is possible every single day, multiple times a day, on your screen, on your device, anywhere in the world. With that, I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. Let's dive in because we got a ton to talk about, all right? So we've got a few guests that have joined us from different corners and different coasts from around the world to share with you about food tech and marketplaces, and maybe a little intersection in between and a little bit of deep technology, as we'll see as well, and how that's playing a role in the future of these industries. Without further ado, let's go ahead and start introducing each of our guests. Benjamina, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure. We had you on one of our first editions here of VCTV around this topic. Glad to have you back. Excited to hear the catch up, but also good. Little intro, little background.
Sure. So my background's in chemical engineering. Did some work in 3D printing for instant flavoring, some marketing work with PepsiCo, and had a startup before. And now the CEO and founder of Higher Stakes, cultivated meat company. So what we're doing is that we're recreating meat using cell culture technologies without the negative impacts on people's health, the environment, and the animals.
I love it. Plant-based everything, but even further than that, it's no longer just a trend. It's actually here, and there's a lot of great stuff happening, and it tastes amazing. Tastes amazing. All right, with that, Steve, welcome to the show. First time guest with Elena and I here on VCTV. Little intro, little background.
Sure. Thanks very much for the invitation as well. So I'm an investment banker by background. Worked at Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, doing asset management at Morgan Stanley, mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance at Goldman Sachs. I specialize in technology companies. Have done a range of mergers and acquisition transactions, as well as investments transactions. I'd say that the more famous, the more well-known of my investment transactions was a company called Cvent, which has a marketplace built into it, but invested pre-revenues, and it's now sort of a billion-dollar company, I've had multiple exits. So that's I better say this or I'll get in trouble. I'm a father of two beautiful daughters. So, yeah.
All right, perfect way to end out that introduction. Well, welcome, Steve, Benjamina, Abby. Pleasure to have you as well. First time guest with Elena and I on VCTV. A little background and a little introduction for yourself.
Thank you, Kyle. Hi, everybody. My name is Abby Lyle. I work for Big Idea Ventures. We're a VC fund that's focused on the future of food. So we do a few different types of deals. We do pre-seed and seed stage deals in alternative protein companies. So plant-based food, cell-based food, basically anything you would eat in place of an existing meat, dairy, seafood product. We do those types of deals through our accelerator program. Applications are open for that. So if you are an early stage, alt protein company, please check out our website, learn a little bit more about what we're doing. We'd love to chat with you. We also recently launched a platform called Generation Food, where we do later stage deals, generally 10 million plus, in companies that are revolutionizing all aspects of the food system, all the way from farm to your table, everything including supply chain, logistics, as well as later stage alt protein deals. So that's what I do, and I'm excited to be here with all of you for this great conversation.
Right on. We're excited to have you. Real quick question on the accelerator program. So typically accelerator programs have a little structure to them, right? How many months they take place, online versus in person, location, et cetera. Just super quick. A little detail on the accelerator. How does it made up?
Absolutely. So it's a 5-month program. We're going to be launching it absolutely first week, very early January 2021, but applications and due diligence are happening now. We have 2 locations, one in New York and one in Singapore. However, with COVID and everything that's been going on, everything's online for the moment. We're hoping to be able to ramp up the in-person program next year. And every company that goes through the program gets $125K investment from us.
Boom. That's what we wanted to hear right there. Audience, take note. All right. Thank you very much, Abby. Mr. Gary Fowler. Author Gary Fowler. I apologize. I forgot to add the.
I thought it was going to be the Grand Master again or something else.
Don't you worry. We got a full week ahead, ladies and gentlemen. I got plenty of time to come up with great introductions for you, sir. But a little intro, a little background for those that might not know.
Yeah, sure. My name's Gary Fowler, and I've done 15 companies. The largest exit we had, I was involved in the original management team of Click Software, an Israeli company that was sold to Salesforce for a little over $1 billion a year ago. I've started another AI company 4 years ago that's nearing that status also, unicorn status. So I love AI, and it's applied in all kinds of different ways. I'm writing a lot. I just wrote an article yesterday about that transportable AI models and how it could be used in the supply chain and things like food tech. So love it. I'm an investor. We're creating a $100 million impact fund in Atlanta and Chicago. Actually, Atlanta, we're actually closer on that one. That's really taken off. I started the first accelerator in Russia. I started the #1 private corporate accelerator about 8 years ago or so. So, just doing a lot of stuff. And
you went on mute, but I'm laughing a little bit at you. You're like, I'm just doing a little bit of stuff. Y'all are doing a little bit of stuff. You guys all have a ton of things going on, which is super exciting, but it's all very relevant to our topic today. Food tech marketplaces. Like I said in the intro, everything has changed, and we've been talking about this a lot here on VCTV. But really, when it comes to both industries, the true argument, and it's not even an argument, it's a fact, is these things were already in place. We were already looking towards these alternative foods. We were already looking at new potential marketplaces. Some have arisen above others, but really this digitization, this acceleration of things has occurred in the past couple months, and for the good in a lot of cases. But we'd love to hear from each of you. What do you see as kind of the current state of food tech and or marketplaces as you're kind of in between both? So Benjamin, I'm going to start with you. What do you see as the current state of food and food tech? from
No,
your view?
absolutely. So as you say, I think there's a lot of trends that were already starting, but really have accelerated in the last few months. And we've seen that particularly with cultivated meat, in that when we speak to people, they really understand why we're doing what we're doing. And when we talk about things such as antibiotic resistance, they understand why it's such a danger, why we need more alternatives. And I think whereas before some people still doubted whether consumer will accept what we're doing, I think now there's no more doubt. When we speak to investors, they never essentially anymore question whether the consumers will want this or not. And I think that's been a major shift.
Absolutely. I mean, I just even myself personally have seen more plant-based foods and just general healthier foods in my refrigerator than ever before. And it's interesting. And just a kind of quick follow-up, I mean, are you seeing this in any particular category? I mean, we go back to the beginning of the year, the kind of plant-based or just alternative foods movement was really just starting to take off and diversify. I'll just say that. And now can't get away from it. And not, again, that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of seeded itself. I'm really good on the puns today. It's seeded itself in so many different areas of the foods that we eat. I mean, do you see anything in particular that it's really taken over as of right now?
That's the thing. I think it's in a lot of areas. So not just plant-based, so obviously cell-based where we're at, but also across innovation across the supply chain. But even on the conventional meat side, people really pushing for innovations that are making it more sustainable. So while we're the more longer term view, people are still looking at how to address what is there now. And really trying to push that from all different angles. And I think that's the thing. It's that it's not just one area. People are really realizing this is a massive problem and we need to tackle it from everywhere we possibly can.
Because it affects the entire value chain, as you said. I mean, and we're going to get to this with everyone else in just a moment, but I'm going to nerd out with you for just a second, because there's a clarifying question I think that we should establish, and that's the difference between plant-based and cell-based. You guys work a lot on the cellular level, which is phenomenal, and people should definitely check it out if you haven't, some of the research that they've put together. But can you, for the audience, just give us a quick breakdown of the two, just so that it's aware?
Absolutely. So very simply, plant-based is made for plants. So Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, anything that you see on the shelves at the moment as an alternative, if it's not insect or conventional, it will be plant-based. So even though some have kind of new technologies involved in it, it still is mostly based from plants. With cultivated meat, it is actually meat at the molecular level. So what we do is that we take a small sample of cells from the animal, which we expand and guide to become muscle, fat, and so on. So we are the same at the molecular level than conventional meat. We're just recreating some of the natural processes, but outside of the body, so that we don't have the same environmental, health, and animal welfare impact.
Got it. Like I said, audience, if you haven't had breakfast, whoo, I hope you had, because I'm getting hungry. All right. Thank you very much.
You can watch as well our bacon and pancake tasting video if you need some inspiration for breakfast.
Oh, agreed. I'm struggling here. We'll definitely get that video too and share it with everyone just at the right time, so you just really can embrace it. Thank you, Benjamina. Steve, I want to come to you next. So current state, I mean, you've invested in marketplaces, a $1 billion+ company. Congratulations on that as well. What are you seeing as the current state of marketplaces today?
Well, so marketplaces tend to be somewhat resilient, resilient meaning that, they have this capability to bounce back, and the reason for that is that you have so many players on both sides of marketplaces, so buyers and sellers or service providers. There's so much of a value and a critical mass that's built up that that they can be impacted by the economy, but they tend to bounce back. I think a prime example is Airbnb, right? So Airbnb got hit in March, when the travel ban was announced. I think I think that they took something like they lost something like 1 million bookings, something to that effect, right? But in July, last month, their sales were up 20% over the prior year, and obviously they're going public now. The tech IPOs have done really well, despite what we've seen with COVID. So marketplaces tend to be very resilient. Obviously the world's biggest marketplace is Amazon, which this has an element of intersection with food, but during the crisis, Amazon has done actually what I would say is unfairly well, right, at the expense of a lot of mom and pops and sort of smaller businesses. But basically, marketplaces, tend to come back. Even so, I think the worst hit sort of sector from marketplaces has probably been travel. We've seen sort of, we've seen many travel marketplaces that have had significant sort of declines in revenues. But again, all the data that we're seeing from July is that they're coming back, right? Now from if you go earlier stage to sort of to sort of early stage to mid stage, venture type opportunities, it's certainly a lot harder to get those going, just because it takes a bit of an effort to build critical mass, but we're certainly seeing interesting opportunities as well. Now I'm not a food expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I did want to sort of highlight a deal that I've seen recently that I'm really excited about. I think in general, I think we're seeing a lot of exciting things happening in science, and the things that we're seeing happening in science tend to get drowned out by what's happening in technology, right? Or which shuttle SpaceX is sort of sending into space. But I think many more exciting things are happening in science. There's a company that Oprah Winfrey invested in recently called Appeal Sciences. This is a company that extends the shelf life of foods using plants. So it reduces waste. Overall, it has a kind of great impact on pricing. And obviously people's health. So there's definitely, I think that you'll see a lot more. We're seeing at least one large deal a week getting announced in the food space, right? And it's all about healthy food. So yeah, I mean, we're really excited to see what happens in the near term.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to Benjamina's point, I mean, that's a big trend we've seen, right? That push towards the healthier foods and the drive towards it as well. And our marketplaces that we've seen over the last year plus have really started to highlight that as well, right? We've got more subscription services, more opportunities, more outlets that are carrying newer types of foods or alternative types of foods than before as well. And just going towards that farm to table or that healthier side as well. And from the marketplace side, I mean, you're calling it out right. We're seeing more delivery, more options than ever before, and more ways to get those types of things to us, which is fabulous and also just exciting to see. And whether you're in a major city or you're in a small town, you're now able to get access to these types of things, no matter your location in most situations. So that's
yeah, you can see Uber. Uber's acquiring Postmates. I know Gary sort of mentioned Click Software. That's actually a company that I know very well. Just because so prior to this sort of in the very early phases of marketplaces, you had these sort of infrastructure guys. So the guys that gave us the beginning of the technology platforms that became marketplaces. So Click Software was one of those guys. It was a kind of field services business. We invested in a marketplace that provided technology installation services. We actually sold it to a Click Software competitor called Service Power. And that's
I know him.
Mark Duffy, don't you?
Yeah,
you guys know each other. Real quick.
It's so funny. I got to say this, guys. It's so funny.
Here, go ahead.
When I started on the original management team and we were nothing as IET, and I named the company Click Software. It's so funny to hear other people talk about it. It is the weirdest thing, really.
Yeah,
seriously.
normal company.
It weirds me out.
Normal company. Yeah.
In a good way.
There's a story behind every name. Let's put it that way. Abby, to you, I want to come over to you. I mean, you are everywhere in this space, from the companies that you guys have worked with to what you guys have invested into, the accelerator program, and then just the company in general. What are you seeing as the current state of both food and marketplaces? Because I know you're sitting at all of it. So what are you seeing as current state right now?
Absolutely. Just to build on some of the amazing points made by Benjamina and Steve, I think we've seen a huge shift in the way that consumers are thinking about food and thinking about their eating habits as a result of COVID-19. And I think that, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of this stuff was coming anyway. A lot of it was stuff that was starting to happen anyway, but the pandemic has just further accelerated those changes and really underscored the importance of why those changes need to be made to the average consumer that might not have been thinking about it before, or might not have cared about it so much before. I think one of the vulnerabilities that the pandemic has really exposed is our supply chain, and just how, consolidation in our supply chain and consolidation at meat processing plants are a really good example, how that can result in food shortages when put through a pressure situation or a crisis situation like the one that we're currently experiencing. The toilet paper shortage is another example of, how our supply chains maybe aren't as resilient as we thought they were, and we now need to be looking for more solutions and funding innovators, backing innovators that are doing great things in this space to ensure that if we're in a global crisis like this again, our food systems are resilient and we're able to make it through in a much better way. So a few things that I've been noticing there, obviously the shift to direct to consumer, a lot of folks wanting to buy direct to consumer. We've had a lot of the companies that we've worked with, they were pursuing food service strategies initially, or big box retailer strategies initially, and now they're pivoting to a direct to consumer strategy because that's what consumer behavior looks like. That's where a lot of consumers are procuring their groceries and the foods they're eating right now. And then just a shift towards a healthier diet in general. And plant-based is certainly a huge part of that. There's overwhelming evidence that whole food plant-based diet is the way to go if you're looking to lose weight, if you're looking to be healthy. There's all the fads in the world that pop up and go away, and at the end of the day, everyone just comes back to whole food plant-based diet being the way to go.
Mom and Dad were right. Eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables, right? So I think we're starting to see people take that seriously because people are very concerned about their health now. People are very concerned about building up their immune system, eating foods that will keep them healthy, prevent them from getting sick, help them to fight off a disease if they do get sick. And I think, the recent uptick in purchases of plant-based products, which has been massive over the last few months, I think that's a testament to that. And I think that's a trend that we're just going to see increase. I don't think that's something that's going to be reversing anytime soon.
Not at all, especially when there's plant-based, all-you-can-eat ice cream.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you go wrong?
Frozen dessert, non-dairy frozen dessert. You don't want to get sued now.
Thank you. Well, I'm just the host, so I'm game on for anything I'm saying. But nonetheless, thank you very much. And Gary, to you, same question, food marketplaces, what are you seeing as the current state? And I've got a follow-up for each of you because there's just so much great information here. So
Well, I mean, think about it. You just said it. I mean, we're really talking about the democratization of opportunity, and think about the small farmers being able to compete. So when you talk about from an AI perspective, I mean, I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that's out there today. Things like being able to look for imperfections in products quickly, right? To get it through the chain faster, as we talked about. To be able to create marketplaces where these farmers can actually take it direct to consumer. I think Abby was mentioning that, right? It's got to happen. We've got to have those kind of things. The other thing is, what about dynamic pricing models for food when it's getting close to being spoiled? I mean, it's not addressed. These are the kind of ways that we can help reduce the waste. And it's all about getting it done faster, having better quality and getting it out. Then you look at the technologies, and I'm not chemical engineer like Benjamina, but I mean, to be able to take and develop for egg whites, for instance, to be able to cultivate in those cells, to be able to create an egg whites like product. I mean, that's amazing to me. And we've got, we go back to this situation where the population of the planet was 2 billion 100 years ago, and it's 7.9 billion today. We have a lot less land of a lot more people. Keep it simple, stupid. We're going to have to figure out, we're not going to have a lot of place for animals. We better be able to cultivate it in an entirely different way. So having the plant-based foods, being able to do what Benjamina is doing is one of the ways that's going to have to happen, and it's going to have to happen sooner than later.
Absolutely. And Benjamina, that teased you up perfectly for the question I had coming, both of them actually. So first and foremost, I want to come back to higher stakes. I mean, you're the founder and CEO of this company. With everything that's mentioned and the kind of the current state, what led you to get into this industry? What led you to actually go and say, I'm going to start a company in this space and I'm going to invest in the future of food? I mean, what led you to jumping into this?
So my primary motivations were really from a health impact perspective. And so I really wanted to do something that would impact millions of people's health. And I think the way I see it is a lot of people put health and environment as two different categories. But the reason most people care about the environment is because if we mess up the environment, we'll mess up our health and the way we're living. And those are really interconnected. The planet itself might survive, our lives on it won't. And so for me, those two elements were really the strongest. I think I've always as well put kind of science and engineering in one category of my life, and my obsession with food and trying all the restaurants out there on another. And this kind of brought both passions of mine. Started exploring what other people were doing, saw different ways of doing things. So the mixture of all of it together led me to higher stakes.
Which, as I was reading your bio pre-show, I mean, you mentioned a little bit of 3D printing and some of the stuff you've done in the past, which this is actually a question for the whole group. Benjamina's last on this one. She's already gone. So 3D printing, is it really something that's here, or is it something that's just a dream and a figment of our imagination, specifically around food, but also marketplaces? And the reason I bring this up is we've talked about it on previous episodes of VCTV, the idea of, hyper localization, dynamic value change, and these hyper local distribution centers, where in the future, but also sometimes currently, we're going to get to this 3D printing model where either at scale largely or smallly, some of the products that we'll order printed on demand and shipped to us. Again, hyper local, done locally, shipped locally. Just a quicker and shorter value chain or supply chain than we've seen in the past. And Abby mentioned this around some of the things that she's seen in the past 9 months of how things have been disrupted and why we needed to make changes. But marketplaces, is this something that's really coming, and when? Food, reality or just a pipe dream? Are we really going to get to a place of 3D printing? And just as a reference, we do have a company in Israel we've talked about here previously that was 3D printing steaks. We've seen the 3D printing pizza makers. came and went, but they're still there. So for all of you, 3D printing here, pipe dream, or something to come in the future. Steve, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to come all around. Benjamin, you're last on this one.
3D printing, really interesting. I mean, I think that 3D printing, 3D printing is here to stay. It's hugely important. I think that it'll impact every single industry at the minimum that's involved in manufacturing. And it's for a very simple reason. It's not. I think we tend to think of the end product when we think about 3D printing, but we don't pay enough attention to infrastructure. So to things, really simple things, the ability to replace screws in kind of manufacturing facilities and plants. The ability to manufacture. This is, I hate to say this, but people are making guns with kind of 3D equipment. As you start looking at sort of poorer regions of the world, the ability to kind of 3D print farm tools, small farm tools, the ability to repair capital infrastructure that's used in agriculture. I think that 3D printing is here to stay, and it's hugely important, and from a marketplace point of view, it's a huge value as well. I think we'll see, if it doesn't already exist, we'll see marketplaces where you can order things from a 3D printer experts, right? People that have different types of 3D printers, your ability to do custom orders, they get sort of shipped to you in record time. Again, if there isn't already, whenever I think I have a bright idea for a marketplace, I've been beaten by a few months. So
Abby's already got this funded. You're already late. I mean, you're already late. Abby, same to you. I mean, 3D printing, are you seeing this as, again, something that's here, or a pipe dream?
It's not something I've seen as being a real value driver in the food space yet. In my past life as an industry agnostic investor, we certainly saw plenty of 3D printing innovations, lots of 3D printing startups seeking funding. As far as, in the context of BIV and companies we've been looking at, it's been less common. I kind of personally view 3D printing as kind of like virtual reality, in that it's this sort of potential exponential technology with tons of promise that has been hyped up for a really long time, and everyone's been talking about it for a really long time, and all the big VCs have been, calling it and saying it's going to come for forever. And as far as actual tangible influence on the day-to-day, I just haven't seen it yet. I think that the 3D printing technologies that I've seen so far haven't been fast enough or cheap enough, or shown a way to get fast enough or cheap enough to really overhaul most of the manufacturing and production systems that we have in food. Not that wouldn't be possible for the future. I mean, anything's possible, and there's certainly lots of great minds in the space, but it's not something that I've seen being a huge driver for value creation in the food space as of right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, to you, any thoughts on that?
Can you repeat the question, Kyle?
Yeah, 3D printing. It's okay. 3D printing.
Okay.
You're a pipe dream.
No, I agree with what Steve had said. Here's what I said. I actually had a recent talk about it. I believe that 3D printing is going to be very similar to what we did with Kinko's Copies, where we have these depots set up in key cities, and you go in just like you did with Copies years ago, right? And you actually could pick up your products. I actually was at a school down in Armenia recently, and I saw for the first time 3D printers printing 3D printers. Really, it was incredible. And so think about it. This is in our life, what's going to happen. First, it'll be, we have it set up so that we've got it like a Kinko's copies. But the next level, we'll have them in our houses. It'll be like the long time ago, the Jetsons. They had the ability to be able to, or Star Trek, to be able to print food. I mean, think about it. This was in the late 60s, right? It's going to happen. And it's going to migrate from a model of a copies where you pick it up and you've got a location in a city to your home when the costs start to come down. It's very, very exciting. I believe it's going to happen, and sooner than later.
Benjamina.
Right. I mean, I'll reflect a little bit on what's been said before. And I think from the food system perspective, everyone having a 3D printer to print food at home or really doing it for the mass scale is not something I see happening soon. If you think about our field, having someone, print steaks from cells at home, like, I mean, the cells take, 2 weeks to differentiate, like knowing what steak you're going to eat 2 weeks before. I mean, that's miles away the way I see it. But to kind of reflect a bit on what Steve said, I do see it really on more on the manufacturing perspective. And when we saw it with ourselves, so testing some materials to grow the scaffold on, we created all kinds of prototype bioreactors. And, if we had to go and get someone to do it, it would cost a lot more than just 3D printing tiny bioreactors, testing with it, printing everything we need, and makes things a lot more easy. So I think, yes, it's here to stay, but I think in a different way than people automatically think. And I think it will really be in the more non-obvious ways, and in the kind of, the screws and the testing and all of that people need. And I think it's good for testing, and it will be really good as well when when people start moving towards better 3D printing of metals, which is already starting. Things like that will really help with manufacturing. So there's no doubt it's here to stay, but I think in a less obvious way than people think.
Yeah, and I think you're all spot on. And with that, Abby, I do have a follow-up for you. I mean, part of what your accelerator program offers is a shared test kitchen. And so one of the trends that we've seen or started to hear a lot about is the idea of open or ghost kitchens, and kind of shared kitchen spaces or shared marketplaces. So for you, are you seeing this as a coming trend here that's really to stay in the near future, that we're going to see more of these ghost kitchens or shared kitchens, along with potentially shared distribution and marketplace centers as well?
I definitely think ghost kitchens are going to be huge. I think again, that's another example of a trend that was kind of starting to happen before COVID-19 hit. And now that COVID-19 has hit, it's really accelerated it. The Spoon actually has done some really incredible pieces on the future of ghost kitchens and how they're transforming the restaurant industry. So I would definitely recommend for anyone who wants to learn more about the topic, I would recommend checking out their work on the space. But I think that we're starting to see huge trends towards people getting takeout and getting delivery, and restaurants being less about the ambiance and where you go to sit down because people aren't going out as much, and being much more about getting delicious food from point A to point B and maximizing the efficiencies there to make as much money as possible. So I think ghost kitchens are definitely going to fuel that, to the extent that restaurants can maximize the capacity to do takeout orders and delivery orders, and that no longer being tied to how many seats they have in house. I think that's really going to be a great force multiplier for the restaurant industry, which is hurting right now. So any sort of technological advancement there and innovative solutions there are certainly welcome. So, and I think the same goes for manufacturing and distribution as well. I think we're starting to see that with grocery stores too. People not wanting to go into the store and shop, but rather getting a lot of delivery. So I think rethinking the design of the grocery store even, and having there be floor space, less floor space for people to shop, and more of the grocery store real estate be dedicated towards fulfillment of these online orders. I think that's another trend that we're going to see on the sort of distribution side as well.
I agree. I like it. And Gary, a question to you, AI. We talk about it on every show with you here. I mean, you are the expert in the space. So how does artificial intelligence play a role in the future of food, part one, and part two, marketplaces?
Yeah, so in terms of food, I mean, we just think about it, the quality of food, the enormous amount of food that we're going to have to inspect is going to need technologies like computer vision. And to be able to do the similar, that article that I shared with you earlier, the transportability of AI models, those same models that we use in manufacturing can now be applied to areas like food, can be applied to medicine. So we need to just we may need to make the system much more effective and much more efficient, and to be able to pick up where there are challenges. So that's door number one. And in terms of AI, I mean, look, from where it's grown to where it gets to your table, the system's not efficient, and there's a lot of brokers involved, and a lot of inefficiency in the systems. And using artificial intelligence to be able to optimize it, as Steve knows, is critically important. And we haven't done it to the level I believe we need to do it to. So that's the other thing. And the other thing we have today is, as Abby said, it's a different model, right? I mean, why can't it go? Why does it have to go to an Amazon? Why can't it just come to your doorstep, right? Why do we have these upcharges? And I believe there's going to be the system, the AI can help make the system more efficient so it can come direct to the consumer. And it's going to happen sooner or later. And it's going to happen to the point you got the farmers, look at it, you got these large conglomerates are out there that are very efficient, but what about the smaller farmers? And what about places where there aren't the conglomerates like Africa? So I believe that AI can really help in that optimization around the world, and especially in the emerging countries. So it's a great opportunity. As I said, we got 7.9 billion people on the planet. And if we grow at 4x like we did in the last 100 years, we got probably won't happen, but we got some serious challenges. The land, it's going to keep diminishing. We got to figure out how to use it more effectively. So, as I said, for waste, right, with dynamic pricing models to be able to look for spoilage. I mean, now it's done like, oh, I think that meat's bad, but you got to really use a dynamic pricing model so you can figure out how to get that out to the market faster at the right price. So that's that part. And, we're in an entirely new world now. Think about what we've just talked about today. I remember 5 or 6 years ago when I had my first Boca burger, vegetable-based burger. And, people were laughing. Now it's standard. And in terms of staying healthy, I think we're going to have a huge impact of having more plant-based foods and more foods that are used and created in the laboratories, right? Faster to get it out. And it does democratize the opportunity for all of us. So, it's like from the creation of the food to the time it gets on your table, everything's changing. And this digital transformation has also helped with that, Kyle, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the digitization of it all, right? That's the thing. It's all been affected. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Just think about it. I don't know how if you're like me, Kyle, but 6 months ago, I did not order from Whole Foods online. I didn't order that much from Amazon online, like food stuff, right?
Right.
Think about it now. It's like standard. It's totally changed. This gives us the opportunity. The vehicle has been put in place to be able to really optimize it and democratize it now for the farmers, right? And make it easier for the consumer. It's an incredible time.
Well, and we're also seeing, again, back to hyper-localization, right? We're also seeing more marketplaces, as Abby pointed out with D2C. We're seeing more D2C models of very local starting up, not just so big and macro, right? We've seen many pop up in the Northwest, some in the Northeast as well, but some in the Northwest that have been very focused on their cities and bringing that food from local farms directly into the local area or region as well. And we're seeing more and more of that to help with those supplies as well. And so Steve and Abby, I've got a question for both of you. Opportunities around investment. As investors, you're looking at investing in these companies. First, diligence. How do you look at a company and really in the food tech or for the marketplace side? How do you look at a company and go through diligence? I mean, there are some things that are a little different. And Benjamin, I'll come to you on this as well. I mean, you're dealing with a company that may be working with something on a scientific level. That's a little bit different than a typical SaaS based company. Let's just call it out what it is. On the other side, from a marketplace, looking at marketplaces today as to what they're going to become, to Gary's point, things are shifting and things are changing. So for investors, what do you look for when you're diligencing a company in these spaces to make sure that it's here for the long run and not just here for the now? And Steve, let's start with you, and then Abby, I'll come to you.
Sure. So marketplaces are notoriously difficult, and what I would say in general is that unless you're very comfortable and really understand what you're doing, there may be, especially at the early sort of stages, there are easier investments to look at. Investing late stage is completely different from investing early stage. So investing in an Amazon, is probably, not too bad, not too terrible a bet to make, and the challenge with marketplaces is that there are various hurdles that you have to hit, right? So hurdle number one is, can you build scale in your marketplace? And that process is a time-consuming process of a lot of testing and a lot of failure, a lot of sleepless nights. Once you have scale in a marketplace, then we start looking at things like how are, assuming it's a service kind of marketplace, how are service providers behaving in your marketplace? How are customers behaving in your marketplace? Are they staying? Are they repeat buying? What sort of a percentage are you getting? Now, what is the sales cycle between buyer and seller? Is it a 1 day type of sale? Is it a sort of 6 month type of sale? Are sales even being made? We see one of the things that we do, and it's one of our preferences, is that we tend to prefer markets that have been developed by people who have experience almost as a broker, in a marketplace sort of industry, just because they have that understanding of both sides and how they interact. Amazingly enough, what we've discovered is that sometimes people that have been long time participants in marketplaces are actually the worst people to invest with, just because they have such a biased understanding of how the marketplace works, but don't have sort of a general understanding of marketplaces. We had, I was chatting with a doctor recently that set up a specialized medical marketplace in a field that he knew really well, and what he discovered was that he couldn't get transactions going through the marketplace because participants came to gather information and then leave and make offline transactions, right? And these are things that a sort of a marketplace expert would sort of spot pretty quickly, right? So in general, people look at things like the gross merchandise value of the marketplace as to give them a sense of scale and some value. People, obviously look at revenues, and in earlier stages, people are valuing marketplaces based off of revenues. And then as they get to scale, people try and develop a view around sort of future cash flow. Mature marketplaces, are, if you get good valuations, are great, just because, they become sort of a life unto themselves. You get economies of scale, network effects, all that kind of thing. So I love marketplaces, but they're not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, they're definitely. So sorry to interrupt, Steve. They're definitely you've really got to judge the scalability, right? If it's local, if it's global, if it's macro, if it's micro, looking at where it's focused and what it's focused on selling as well. And is that something for the now and into the come? And Abby, to you, same question, kind of where are you seeing when it comes to diligencing these companies? What should you be looking for as an investor? I mean, especially around food tech. I mean, marketplaces, I think Steve kind of called that out a little bit. And, again, hyper local versus global, but from a food perspective, how are you looking at companies from a diligence perspective as an investor?
Yeah, absolutely. And Steve, I think you made a really great point about how different it is investing at the early stage versus the late stage. So I primarily invest in food tech companies at the pre-seed and seed stages, which is a totally different animal from doing sort of a growth equity deal or later stage VC deal as far as what you're looking for in the due diligence process. Most of the companies that we work with are either pre-revenue or they have some small amount of revenue, but not enough to make any sort of meaningful projections. So as far as looking at their financial statements, that's not really going to tell you much, right? Like you kind of look at those projections and the numbers are all made up. So there's unfortunately with the type of investing that I do, there isn't a way to sort of build an Excel model and have it spit out a nice, neat number as to whether or not, you should invest and at what valuation. It's much more of a people-driven game. And so I think the main thing that we're looking for with early stage investments is the team. We really need to believe in these founders and think that they're going to be good stewards of our capital and feel confident that they have the drive and the tenacity to take this all the way to the finish, keep going when the going gets tough. That they don't have a huge ego, that they're coachable, that they're able to take feedback well. That's super important for us because I've seen deals with founders that aren't humble go sideways so many times. So that's definitely one of the main things that we're looking for as far as the team goes. And then on the product side, we want to invest in things that are different, right? Like there's a lot of different type, there's lots of plant-based solutions that are already out there. So we need to know that there's some sort of competitive moat or competitive edge with what this company is building. And that might be on the science side, some sort of unique IP. It could also be a branding play. It could be, some sort of strong partnership that they have, some sort of early customer. Those are the main things that we're looking for, at the pre-seed and seed stages. And then finally, how we can help them. I think that's something that often gets overlooked in VC due diligence is there's so much more, particularly at the early stages, to investing in a company than just writing a check. So when we're thinking about making investments, we're thinking about how does this company plug into our existing network? Are there people that we can introduce them to that will really add value, that will really help their business, help drive their business into hyper growth mode? What types of connections can we make for them to investors and other strategic partners? So we want to make sure that it's a good fit for our network so that we're doing right by the company in terms of being a smart money investor. And that's super important to us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Benjamin, to you, I mean, you've built a great company around this. When you were going through the diligence process or preparing for that, as well. I mean, what were some of the things that you might have been asked that you would give as advice on both sides, right? To the entrepreneurs building in the space that are going to be pitching Abby later today, and then also those, who may be looking to invest in the space, what things to specifically target in their process.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what we've been questioned mostly on is the differentiation, the kind of moat aspect, but also because of the kind of riskiness of our business, different investors had different points where they found, this is super risky and this is freaking me out. So some of them had the technology, others had the consumers, which we were seeing, as I mentioned, seeing less, but again, some were really digging on that. Others, it was the regulations. Others, it was the capital intensive part. So different investors would kind of pick one area and typically kind of really dig in that. So I think for entrepreneurs is really seeing what are the main risks of your business, and really being able to answer well on that. And overall, again, why are you different? To be honest, we've seen quite less on Abby's point on things like resilience and things like that. I think it's things that some investors, once they invested, had said, that was a particular area where I felt you did well and I invested, but we haven't really been questions, I can't remember only one actual investor questioning me about resilience and, what evidence can I show him that I'm in for the long term and all of that. So I would say to investors, probably question, if that's an important aspect, question that more on that.
Absolutely. And I think those are all great points. And guys, we are here at the lightning round. What does that mean? It's time for closing thoughts and where everyone can find you to continue the conversations. We're coming up to the top of the hour. So Abby, I want to start with you. And again, thank you all for all your thoughts and insights. And to our audience, everyone's going to be available online. So feel free to reach out and connect and continue the conversation as well with them. But Abby, let's start with you. Any closing thoughts around this topic and today's discussion? And then also, where can everyone find you? And I know you have a special call out, so you can drop that as well at the end.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Kyle and the rest of the team. This has been really great, an awesome conversation. Love speaking with all of the other amazing panelists. Final thoughts, I think this is a super exciting time for the food space. And I think, I think there's a lot of negativity that we hear, given a lot of the market sentiment that's been going on these past few months. And I think food tech in the food space is one area where it's overwhelmingly optimistic. I think we're finally starting to see shifts in the right direction for people, for the planet. And I am super excited to be part of this journey and to be able to wake up every morning and do this as my career. So it's been a pleasure being here. If you would like to learn more about our accelerator program, please visit bigideaventures.com. There's lots of information there about the program, the investment, what we offer, as well as a big apply button in the upper right hand corner. As we also post a lot on our LinkedIn at Big Idea Ventures. So if you're interested in following us and hearing more about what we're up to, we post many times a week about all programming, everything related to Big Idea Ventures. So please follow Big Idea Ventures LinkedIn page. I only accept people that I personally know on LinkedIn, unfortunately. So please follow the company LinkedIn. And if you would like to get in touch with me personally, you're welcome to send me an email at abby@bigideaventures.com.
And remember to add context. We talked about this last week on VCTV. Make sure you add context of where you found or where you discovered Big Idea Ventures in Abby.
Yes.
Definitely check out, and I will shamelessly drop their LinkedIn is gold when it comes to this industry. They do a fantastic job, the entire staff. And thank you very much, Abby.
I've heard from founders they back that they really help you on the marketing. So I've heard a lot of good on that.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your kind words. It's been so great being here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary, another author. Quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, no, these are exciting times. And from the farm to the table, there's optimization needs to take place. We're looking for growth stage companies from all over the world. We're a venture studio, GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios. So we're curating those companies. We believe in diversity. We're building a $100 million fund, a diverse fund today. So looking for those companies. This is an interesting time, and the digital transformation has really pushed us forward. You can reach me, Gary at gsdvs.com, or check me out on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Kyle, and thanks everybody for joining today. It's great.
Absolutely. Steve, quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Cool. So, this has been really an exciting panel. I think that, as much as I'm a marketplace guy. I've been a marketplace guy for many years. I've sponsored conferences, spoken at conferences, taken companies public, sold them, invested in them, been on their board as chairman of one. There are probably more people struggling out there getting marketplaces off the ground than there are successful people. Happy to talk to everyone. If you're struggling and you want advice, yeah, I'm happy to talk with you. But I'm actually more, even though I'm not a food guy, I'm more excited about what's happening in science. As I said, I think that most people of our age will view the iPhone as one of the most exciting things that's happened in our lifetime. It really isn't. I think there are more interesting things that have happened in science and biology. The advances that we've made in gene therapy, this is more of Benjamina's sort of area, but it's just much more exciting. We'll be able to extend how long we live for. We'll be able to live healthier lives. It's absolutely amazing. Now, as far as getting in touch with me, on the investment banking side, you can reach out. You can get me at steve.o@capitalmergers.com. steve.o@capitalmergers.com. So we ourselves, we started. We don't even really
super quick. Sorry, Steve, we're over time, so super quick.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Just real quick. steve.o@crosswork.us as well. If you're a marketplace company looking to launch a marketplace, if you're at the late stage of a marketplace, check out crosswork.us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Benjamina, close us out. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Quick. Food space is super exciting. We're always happy to connect with potential partners, potential investors, potential hires. So there's not many Benjamina Bullocks out there, so I should be easy to find. On LinkedIn, feel free to connect on LinkedIn or through our website.
Wonderful. And definitely check out Higher Stakes. Also, make sure you check out Big Idea Ventures and the accelerator program that they have open with applications right now. All, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and insights to your audience. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to be on a show like today, please do reach out, either investors to share your thoughts or entrepreneurs to pitch each and every one of us. As we said, we're all available 24/7, 365 online. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott. A big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We'll be back here in just a few minutes with another episode as we look towards the stars and go away from the farm and the table and take food up to space. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Gary. We'll be back here talking about space and deep technologies. Thank you, Benjamina.